QR code for those at the back of the hall. But we have already selected a couple of questions.
Okay.
So I will start with the first one.
Okay.
Are protests appropriate at this time, especially in a country like Malaysia, where the government is already pro-Palestine? And what is the purpose of these protests?
When you're in an Islamic university, you have the sheikh, you have many of the muftis. This almost is veering into the remit of fiqh. So I would say that in that situation, if you want a fiqhi ruling, that you're in good company, you're in one of the prestigious Islamic universities, and you have many people you can ask about your specific context. So what I would say in a general sense though, because I can't make any specific disclaimers or judgments about what's happening here in Malaysia, but the thing is, when people see protests, it's not about protesting against the government. I mean, in Turkey anyway, Erdogan was part of the protest. He was the one leading it. So it's not always the case that it's protesting against the government. Sometimes it can just be a show of power, a show of will, a show of showing the world that, okay, the people here care about people of Palestine. And it can be done in an organized way. And from my understanding, the government here doesn't have an objection to it. But I might be wrong about all those things. So once again, for specific understanding of the context in Malaysia, then you have to ask the people of Malaysia. You have many scholars here, many judges, many, shuyukh and so on. So that's what I would say. Any other questions from there?
Right. The second one is, we know that whatever Allah does, He does it for the best.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then why is this happening to the Palestinians? And how can we tell that there is a wisdom in what is happening right now to the Palestinians?
Right, so there's a good friend of mine, his name is Bassem Zawadi, right? And he has a very interesting argument he's published somewhere online, where he basically argues for the wisdom of God on an intellectual level. So the way he does it is this. He says, look, you've got the design argument for God's existence. I'm not sure if you've heard of it before. The design argument for God's existence takes different ways, but one of them, let's just say for the sake of argument, the watchmaker argument. Imagine if you're walking in the desert somewhere and you see a watch in the desert, what will you assume? You will assume that this watch has a manufacturer, has a producer, has someone who's created it, has crafted it, has put it there. You will not assume that the forces of the desert have conjoined in a haphazard, slapdash manner in order to create this watch, okay? So likewise then, when you look at the universe, the argument goes. When you look at the universe, you look at the complexity, you look at the uniformity, you look at the irregularity, and you ask yourself, where did it come from? So you have two options. Either it came from knowledge or it came from lack thereof, no knowledge. And the argument goes, it makes more sense to say that it came from knowledge. But is this where it stops? No, Zawadi makes the argument, basically, that if we are saying that everything is placed in a certain place for a certain reason in the universe, and that is us talking about inanimate things, cosmological things, then the same kind of thing can be generalized to our everyday lives. If every star, every atom, every grain of sand is put in place for a reason in this universe, so too every trial and every calamity and every tragedy is put in our life for a reason. So this is a logical argument. It's a logical argument because it's saying it's unlikely to assume that the same designer of the universe, who designed the universe with great proportionality and appropriacy, would do so with inanimate things, but would not do so with our very lives. And so the same proportionality and appropriacy that we're finding in the perfect balance of the universe is also the same proportionality and appropriacy that we find in our lives, including death, including martyrdom, including children dying, including everything you think. And I don't know if it's the Eastern tradition, maybe the Sheikh will tell us, and Dr. Lim will tell us about it. But there was a story I heard about, I don't know if it's from the Hindus or where the story came, but there's 3 blind men, okay? 3 blind men and the elephant. I don't know if you've heard the story. So there's 3 blind men. One blind man, he came and he said, what is an elephant? So one of them touched the ear of the elephant and he came back. He said, the elephant is a very wavy creature. The other one touched the tail of the elephant and he says, very hairy creature. The other one touched the trunk. He said, I don't know, it's a very long creature. Yeah. All of them didn't have an idea of what the elephant looked like because none of them had the full picture of the elephant. All these are blind men trying to interact with the elephant. We too are like the blind men trying to interact with the elephant when we look at a young child in Palestine being killed. Because we say, why would God do that? That doesn't seem right. But we don't have the entire picture, you see. As my friend and mentor says, we have the pixel, not the picture. We have a part of the picture, but not the entire picture. And so it's easy for us to say, why would God do this? But let's say, if you could see, genuinely, if you could see this baby who had been incinerated or had been killed, if you genuinely could see them in heaven reclining and enjoying their time and laughing and giggling and drinking up and this and that, I don't think you'd feel sorry for this baby anymore. But it's just because we don't see that side of it. We only see the side of it where the parents are crying and the babies are dying. That we ask, why is this happening? But if we truly believed in the other side of it, honestly, we would not feel sympathy for those who have been killed in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We would feel a great sense, we'd have a different emotional response. We'd feel a sense of relief, happiness, celebration for them. Oh, alhamdulillah, look what Allah has given them. He has chosen them for this thing. Don't forget, the Sahaba used to have that mentality. The mindset that we have is so different to the mindset of the Sahaba. Because of materialism, because of the fact that we only believe in what we see, because of the news and social media and so on and so forth. But if we had an akhirah-centric view, like the Sahaba did, one of the Sahabis in one of the battles, I think it's Khandaq, he was killed, yani the dagger was going through him, and the hadith says, he was saying, as the dagger was going, Fuztu Rabb al-Kaaba, I'm so happy. Yani imagine the dagger is being put into his back. He said, I've become successful. As the dagger is piercing his back. It's a completely different mindset that they have. The Islamic mindset is such a powerful mindset. Because when you have that, by the way, the world becomes so painless, so easy. Suffering becomes much easier to deal with. Having this mindset means that this is the closest you will ever get to having a painless life, by the way. Because every single thing you're making sense of it. It's like you get hurt, you get pain, this and that. Yeah, Allah had a plan. Allah had a plan. Which is why you'll find the most atheistic societies are the most suicidal. That's a fact. Look at Japan, look at Sweden, look at Norway. They're the most atheistic societies, and that's why you have the highest suicide rates. And the reason for that is because, you could argue, meaninglessness. This pain doesn't make any sense. Our religion makes sense of every single bit of pain that you're going to ever experience. So that's how I would answer that question. Should we open the floor as well, or do you want to have a couple more? It's not okay? Yeah?
After this one, we'll switch to the live
okay. Yeah.
session.
Yeah.
So please get ready to take your mic. So the last online question is, what is the best method to stay positive in spite of all the problems of this dunya?
So staying positive is something that a lot of people have been mentioning in self-help. I don't know if there's a whole category, if you've seen it or not, called self-help. Many books have been written, many things have been said. You know, you have these motivational speakers and talking about being positive and all this kind of thing. In fact, there's a book called Stay Positive. There's one called Stay Positive. There's one, I forget the name of the writer, but I read this book a long time ago. It goes, Stop Worrying, Be Happy. I can't remember the name of the writer. Who wrote this? No, it's not Bob Marley. Not Bob Marley. But another one is the Power of Now. Okay? There's all these books now that have been written, okay, about being... But by the way, I agree with most of the theme here, which is just enjoy life. A lot of the time, we think about the future. But I need to finish this education and my children when they grow up. And there's always something to think about in the future. Now, I'm not saying it's always unwise, yes? It's always unhealthy to think about the future. It's okay to think about the future a little bit. But when your whole life becomes thinking about what's going to happen in the future, I was speaking to an elderly man, okay, in the community, and he said, I had a problem with anxiety all my life. That's what he said to me. I said, why? He said, because I always thought, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if, what you call the hypothetical, yeah? What if this, and what if that, and what if this, and what if my child, this happens, and what? I said, when you were younger, he's in his maybe 70s, 80s. I said, when you were younger, did you also have these thoughts? He said, yes, I've always had these thoughts. I said, give me some examples of some of the things that you thought. He said, my auntie died from colon cancer, so I always thought I was going to get colon cancer. So I was always worried, what if? Every time he has something with his stomach, he runs to the doctor. I said, did you end up getting colon cancer? He said, no, I didn't. So I said, it wasn't a waste. Think about it. It wasn't a waste of anxiety. It's a waste of emotional energy. You always think this is going to happen, negative. You've got to kind of let go, because we have to realize that, sorry to say this, so many things can go wrong. Statistically, half of us are going to get cancer. Maybe a third of us are going to get divorced. Maybe more, maybe half of us. No, honestly. This is going to happen, that's going to happen. Maybe some of our children, maybe our spouses are going to get ill, sick, die, whatever. Death, destruction, everything bad is going to happen to you. Sorry, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. No, but it's the case though. Everything bad is good. That's one thing guaranteed in dunya, in fact. By the way, there's never been a person that's come in dunya. Okay, this has never happened. Baby, yeah? He's now a baby, and then after that, Allah created us from nutfa. ثم من علقة ثم what do you call it? That's not I'm thinking about the tiflan. He created us as tifl after that, and then وجعلناكم شيوخا. This is in Surah Ghafir, yeah? First it was this, then that. So you're a child. There's never been a person that was a child and then grew up, had no worries, had no problems, and then died. Never happened in human history. Never ever happened. This dunya, this dunya that we live in, is darul ikhtibar. Everything you do has a trade-off. Every single thing you do. Which means everything has a tax. Everything you do. Like right now, if I drink this water, there's a tax for that. Okay? Which is I'm going to have to go to the toilet soon. It's a physiological tax. Anything good you want to do has a taxation attached to it. That's the nature of dunya. If you want to get married, there's a big tax with this one. Big taxation. Especially if you want to get married more than one time. For the men. I know the sisters now say, don't go there, brother. We were talking about some nice things. Well, you know, anything that you think is nice. Anything which is good for the sisters. I want to get a baby. Okay. When you get pregnant, you'll see how it feels. Morning sick, vomit, this and that. Sorry to say, the child comes up and says bad things to you when you're older. You say, what's going on? I didn't go through all. Yeah, every single thing you do has a taxation, has a cosmological taxation attached to it. That's the dunya. Now there are two kinds of people. There are those people who will make sense of that and embrace that and accept that and try and strengthen themselves and grow an inner resilience so they can deal with as much of it as possible. And there's other people who will not do any of that and in fact will get swept away like a wave in the ocean. Life is like a fight. That's the truth of the matter. If there's anything closest to life, it's like a fight. Like a box, you talk about UFC. Life is like a UFC fight or an MMA match. It's like a boxing. You want to have a strong fighter. And when they go into the ring, they know how to defend. You're going to get punched. Life is going to punch you in the face. You need to know how to take the punch and give one back. Not in the context of marriage. That's a different thing. Because I know I'm just talking about marriage and this. That's a different thing. No, honestly, you need to be able to take the punch and give one back. This is life. And Bruce Lee said this perfectly. He said this. He said that, I don't pray to God to have an easy life. I pray to God to be able to deal with a difficult one. We should be able to pray to God that Allah gives us sabr. This word sabr has become, sorry to say, now people have trashed the word. They've diminished it. It's cheapened the word, sabr. Anyone says sabr, you just, like, I don't want to hear it anymore. I'll have sabr. No. This. Sabr, this is such a beautiful concept in Islam. It's one of the powerful concepts that's mentioned in Surah Al-Asr. Sabr is not just patience, it's resilience. Who doesn't want resilience? You know, and the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا الْحِلْمُ بِالتَّحَلُّمِ وَالصَّبْرُ بِالتَّصَبُّرِ. Actually, it's a hadith. You can only become resilient by putting yourself in resilient positions where you have to use it. In other words, taking yourself out of your comfort zone. If you want to have a mentality where everything in life is going to come to you and I have to... No. The mentality that Islam gives you is chase the pain, actually. Chase the pain, not in a sense, in a sadistic sense, like, you know, these some groups, I don't want to hurt themselves, actually. So I'm not saying this. So, no, I don't know, I hope I'm not offending anybody here. Well, some of them, they, you know, hopefully they don't congregate like that here. But I'm just saying, not chase the pain like that. Chase the pain meaning go into a controlled environment, whether it's educational or familial or something, and realize that it's going to be hard. It's not just about staying positive, it's knowing when to rest. There's a book that was written called Mental Toughness by Daniel Goleman. Okay, Daniel Goleman famously wrote this thing called emotional intelligence. And, you know, one of the things he wrote about is resilience and stuff. And what he said that resilience, to get high level of resilience, you need to learn when to rest. It's not just about staying positive all the time like a clown or like a happy man or whatever. That's not the case. You just need to know when to rest, when to be happy, when to go active. I mean, the lion sleeps for 18 hours a day. Okay? But when he acts with ferocity and vehemency and precision. The donkey walks around making, doing all this work for all these hours, but it doesn't get the job done like the lion. What I'm saying to you is that it's not about being positive all the time. It's about knowing how to act, being efficient, knowing when to rest. What's the difference between rest and laziness? There's actually no difference whatsoever, except that laziness is not preceded by hard work, whereas rest is. If I lay down on this sofa, I could be being lazy or having a rest, depending on what I did before it. Yani, I could be doing the same activity, and it could be seen as laziness from one angle and rest from another. The point I'm making to you is, the religion of Islam is a marathon and not a sprint. If you watch the 5,000 meter runs, you see they don't run that fast. If you watch 100, they're sprinting. If you try and sprint in the religion of Islam, make everything difficult for you, you're going to run out of gas. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ said. Inna ad-dina yusr, wa la yashad ad-din ahadun illa ghalabah. The religion is ease, and whoever tries to overburden himself with it will be overburdened by it. The religion of Islam is a marathon, or it's not just about being positive. Yes, it's about knowing the wisdoms, but it's about pacing yourself. It's about knowing when to rest. It's about looking after your own emotions. It's about knowing when to exert yourself, knowing when to sleep, knowing to wake up. All this stuff is important. That's what I would say. Should we open up? You're not giving me any controversial questions. You're giving me the... Yes, sir.
Okay, so...
Okay, oh, you're going to do it. Okay, fine, yes.
We will take 2 from the brothers and 2 from the sisters.
Okay.
We will start with the brothers. So.
Okay,
Salam.
My name is Hashim.
MashaAllah.
I'm an alumni of this wonderful university. So speaking of unity, how can we really implement unity realistically with some practical steps? Because as we see now, politics is quite complicated, and Muslim countries are fighting amongst each other, and each country is claiming that they are holding the true Islam, they are defending the real Islam. And throughout my readings, I've never seen any practical unity throughout the history. Even when Salah ad-Din tried to restore Jerusalem back then, he had to take down Fatimiyya, although they had the same common enemy. According to Ibn Khaldun, the only way of unity is to have a dominant power in the region that will take control of all the small power under them. Not because of love and unity and the same goals and missions and vision. It's only by their power. This is the only way of uniting people. So what are the current practical steps that we can take to unite Muslims, which seems very difficult to do, honestly?
Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi. So Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, yes, it's true that we have a romanticized image of Islamic history. Sometimes we think everyone was, under one khilafah all the time. which wasn't the case. Sometimes you had like, the muwahhids or the murabits on one hand, and you had another group on this side, and you had sometimes a level of disunity. And you could call it political disunity, right? The Fatimids were Shia, and look, I'm not going to try and be ultra idealistic with you. I think that to try and unify fully with the Shia is a very difficult task. We could have a policy of non-engagement with them. Or we could have a policy of not attacking each other or something like that. But if we're talking about itar Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, it becomes a much easier and practical thing. So Salahuddin Ayyubi, if you look at the Ayyubid dynasty, he did manage to a great extent to unify a lot of the tribes. Okay? And in fact, some of the Hanbalites who had been very, from an Aqidah perspective, very ferocious and vehement towards the Ash'arites at the time, they had actually, like Ibn Qudama, right? Ibn Qudama had written a book called Al-Alu about the highness of Allah and so on. But he actually unified and fought under Salahuddin Ayyubi. So in that sense. So there are ways in which it can happen, okay? Now I'm not saying that now you've got 56 Muslim majority countries, or 57, 58, depending on how you count them, yeah? In the provinces in Russia, do you count them as individual countries or not? Whatever. 56, 57, 58 countries that are Muslim majority. I'm not saying that we're going to have one country that's going to encompass all of them. If we had one country that had 10 of those countries, I'm just for the sake of argument, or 7 of those countries. I mean, look, if you had a country with Pakistan, Indonesia, and one other country, you've got another power in the world, like a proper dominant power. 50 is like, there's a lot. Like, you have a dominant power immediately. I think if you add up all of the area of the Muslim world, it's about 33 million kilometers squared. Okay, it's a huge area. The population's 2 billion, okay? If it had an army, if it was 57 countries or 58 countries, it would be the biggest army in the world by far. By far it would be, it would destroy every other army in terms of that. I'm saying that that kind of unity, it could be romanticized, it could be sometimes, but then some would say, therefore let's abandon the project altogether of trying to create something. Look at the Europeans. I mean, if the Europeans could do it, Germany wasn't unified. Germany wasn't one country. Von Bismarck came along and he said, let's create a unified project. And he brought the provinces together. Because there are provinces of Germany, and he was able to do it in Germany. Now they have the European Union. Okay, so I'm not saying that's a perfect unity, but if they were able to do it with that, if they were able to create NATO, why are they able to do it and we're not able to do something close to that or similar to that? We can do it. If they can do it, we can do it. Because they've shown that it's possible. Do you see what I mean? So we don't even need to rummage through the historical textbooks. We can look at the contemporary examples. If they can do it, we can do it. And if we do it in a way which it may still maintain the integrity of each of the sovereign states, but it allows some kind of a pact to happen, then we will get a lot done. But this requires master planning, and I'll be honest with you, I think for us to reach that level, there has to be an economic incentive. I'm not going to lie to you. The reason why people are not doing it now is because the economic incentive is in the hands of America. America is saying, if you do this, we'll give you this much money every month. It's as simple as that, really. Okay, if somehow the economic incentive changes drastically, then maybe the situation will change. And I think that's happening already. And it could be due to something other than Muslims' involvement. It could be China and Russia. It could be. The Americans could decide to do something foolish with Russia, for example, as they already are. And there could be some kind of a proxy war or some kind of an actual war between those two countries. And China might take a neutral stance or may take a very active stance. And then what would happen after that? Then the Muslims will become incentivized by geopolitical advantage to become the new power. Right now they're not. But I'm saying you don't know the situation. Sometimes there's things that are outside of our hands. A lot of the victories that we've had in Islamic history have been due to things that are actually outside of our hands. Like, it's not in the control of the Muslims. So what I'm saying is, the main thing is not to lose hope. We might not be able to see how all the things are going to happen, but we do know it's going to happen. Why do we know that? Because the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told us it will. You know the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, which is mentioned in Musnad Ahmad, that the beginning of the situation will start with Khilafah Rashidiyah. It will start with a caliphate, rightly guided caliphate. And then after that, it will become a kind of monarchical system, okay? Like kings and so on. And then after that, it will be mulkan abdan, like an authoritarian rule. And that's what we're seeing in the majority of the Muslim world, a kind of dictatorship and authoritarian rule. But then after that, what does the Prophet ﷺ say? And then it will come back to khilafah ala minhaj an-nubuwwah. So the Prophet ﷺ predicted that in the end of days, it will be back to where we started from. Someone may be a weak believer and not believe in this and say, I don't see how in modern states, and didn't you read Wa'il Halak's book and Impossible State and so on? I've read all of it. But I've also read the hadith. And for some reason, I have more faith in the hadith than the modern political scientists that are trying to make predictions based on global trends. So it's not about when we will unite. It's about whether or not we're going to be a part of it. Because we will unite. There will come a time when the Imam Mahdi will come and all of this will happen. It's in our hadith literature. And why shouldn't we believe it when everything else the Prophet ﷺ said came true? All of these minor signs came true. يَتَطَاوَلُونَ فِي الْبُنْيَانِ the tall buildings are going to be built by these barefooted Arabs. The STDs are going to be spread. The interest is going to be everywhere. The Mongols are going to do this. There's even hadith about abortion. That a woman is going to try and abort the baby. There's so many very specific hadith, minor signs of the Day of Judgment. And it culminates the end of times with the unification of Muslims. It does. That's how I would answer that question. Is that two? One more from your brothers? Yeah, all right. Someone put a hand up. Yeah, the brother there in the middle. The good-looking brother there, yes. Yes. Yeah, give it to him, yeah. No, I said the good-looking brother, not him. I'm joking. I've made that joke at least 20 times, by the way. Go ahead.
So the question is not on.
Yeah.
You say there's groups that do not. They're always like away from the other group. They don't like to communicate or work with the other group.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Now I agree somehow that most of these groups are paid, but then based on what I was reading and trying to know, I noticed that some groups have bad experience with working with other groups, or they have been treated bad by the government or ruling or so on. So that somehow affected them to not have the trust to work with other groups, and then they start warning others to work to make groups, whether it was political, whether it was religious political, whether it was so on. So what's your take on that? I really want to understand.
Yeah, my take on that is that we can always find the excuses not to get the job done. But we have to realize that if we don't get the job done, there's consequences of not doing so. Number two is, I would say that in order for any kind of collaboration to happen, is you have to try and create win-win scenarios. Okay. Win-win, in game theory, there's 4, 5, 6 different options sometimes, depending on what. One of them is win-win, where both players win. Okay, I win, you win. So the art of good collaboration is making sure that both players win. So institution A, which is a Muslim institution, and institution B, a clever leader of an institution will think, okay, these guys maybe are acting competitively towards me, and or could act that way. How do I bring them into my scope in a way that I could benefit from them and they could benefit from me? If the first thing you think about before collaborating with someone is how to benefit them rather than benefit yourself, you're more likely by that standard to benefit yourself, which is very interesting. It's the same thing with marriage. It really is, honestly. You know, some people have marriage meetings and all they're thinking about is what they're going to get. This is a very bad approach. Imagine sitting down, for example, and this is how it sounds, okay? You're sitting down and you get married. Okay, so how is your cooking, sister? How is this and how is that? So this and that, and they ask all these questions because it's all that sister's leaving thinking, this guy is just a user. You know, what is he going to bring to it? Am I right? Same thing the other way around. So how much money are you making? So this and that. So there's nothing wrong with these questions. But if that's the only thing you're bringing all the time, okay, in personal life or in institutional life, you become a failure in leadership, you become a failure in public communication, you become a failure in relationship building. The art of good relationship building is to find a way to benefit someone else. Even if it means in the short, medium, or even long term, you will not receive a benefit. You have to be generous. Okay. Sometimes you can just think to yourself, I'm going to benefit these guys. They're good guys. I'm going to benefit them. By benefiting them, actually by doing that, you're stopping them from harming you. That could be the case. If you benefit someone, you might not get them to benefit you back, but at least you stop them from harming you. I know it sounds quite instrumental still, but nevertheless, this is what our religion's about. Be generous. Be generous with your time, with your money, with your institution, this and that. The question you should ask yourself is, how can I benefit them? If the question that we ask, oh, these guys are doing this to us, and you care too much about your ego and yourself and your money and all this. That's what Allah says in the Quran. Whoever is able to squash his own miserliness, they are the real successful ones. So that's what I would say the number one piece of advice is to think about collaborating on a win-win basis. And that's a general thing that we should be doing in life anyway. And number two, which is sometimes even more effective, is to find the common enemy. Now, that's a very effective thing. And we see this even in the most severe of situations. I'm going to give, once again, a polygamy example. I don't know why I'm doing this, right? Sorry, sisters, you know. But a man has got two wives, for example. Wife A, wife B. They hate each other. This is usually what happens. Now, I don't know in Malaysia if the situation is different. I'd like to know. I mean, but usually this is the dynamic, psychology. They usually hate each other, okay? Or the first one leaves, or the second one leaves. Something like that usually happens. But they hate each other, you know, resent, jealous. It's very natural. So, okay, I'm not saying it's natural to hate each other, but natural to be jealous. Now, if the third person comes in, third wife, guess what can happen sometimes? And Allah, I've seen this many, many times. They actually start liking each other. They form a coalition. Honestly. She becomes like Israel, astaghfirullah. The third one. And now the Houthis and the Hamas are making it's a convenient relationship. Unbelievable. Now, we're all like that. It's not just the sisters that are like that. We men are like that as well. The enemy of the enemy is my friend. I know it sounds horrible, but it's true. Why is China good friends with Russia? They have nothing in common. They can't even speak to each other. They don't even look like each other. They've got nothing. You've got Iran. I was just speaking to the brother. He was saying, in North Korea, if you do certain actions, they'll torture you. One American was tortured and he was sent back on a wheelchair. He was telling me. You see. But then apparently, the Iranians are there, no problem, with North Korea. They've got their own embassy. They're praying. Oh, hi there. What's that guy called? The leader of North Korea. I forget his name. Kim Jong-un. You know, he's walking around and Kim Jong-un was, yeah, this is my friend, no problem. Why? Because it's like the third wife syndrome. So long as we're together against this America, no problem. Yeah, so the same thing applies. It's basic psychology, all right? That's why in the whole Palestine issue, I've seen people come together that you'd never think to come together. I was walking at one time and I saw, in England we have these people called Brelvi. Have you heard this? It's like kind of like Sufi, yeah, but it's Brelvi, right? And I saw a Salafi. Oh, I've never seen you guys here together. Palestine, okay. No issues. We see people come together that, you know, never would because of the Palestine issue. It's a unifier because there's a common enemy. So to produce a common enemy is a mark of genius. That's why the brother, one time he went to the Sheikh in Saudi Arabia in the Masjid al-Haram and he said to him, my two wives are fighting each other. I've had enough. What should I do? He said, marry a third wife. So, it's funny that they're all clapping, isn't it? Okay, we'll go to the sisters since we've spoken about a lot too much about this. Yes, give the microphone, please. Who wants to ask the first question? Yes, sir.
Okay, my question is, what do you think about the state of the Ummah today? Is it declining? Is it improving?
Thank you. I think, you know, honestly, from some perspectives, the Ummah is improving. She asked, what is the state of the Ummah? Is it declining or is it improving? Look, in general, the Ummah has declined since 1924, or even before that, even in the 1800s. The history of the Ummah has been one of decline in the last 100 years. Okay, in many ways, we are the weakest we've ever been since the time of Meccan period, okay, in Islam. However, from another perspective, there's a lot of us. Now, it's true, I do believe that when the Prophet ﷺ said that there will come a time when the Ummah will be divided up, and then this companion says, min qillatina, ya Rasulullah, is it because we're so small a number? He said, actually, and this is another prediction, he said, you'll be so much that time, but you'll be kaghutha'i sail. You'll be like the foam of the sea. Basically, you have low quality people inside the Ummah. And he said, what's the reason for this? And so the Prophet ﷺ is responding, he's telling you this. He says, حُبُّ الدُّنْيَا وَكَرَاهَةَ الْمَوْتِ. Because you love dunya too much and you fear death too much. That's what he said. So I do believe we're still in that phase. But the Palestine experience, I have hope with it, because I think the Ummah now is awake a little bit. We've seen people on the streets everywhere in the world, in the Western world, in the Eastern world, in the Middle Eastern world. There is a sentiment now. There's an awakening project. It's like the Ummah realizes that we are the best people for each other. And I do believe that this episode of the Palestine conflict is a turning point in history. I believe that. I strongly believe that, in fact. This is what we needed. We needed a strong medicine to wake us up from the somnambulant, sleepwalking state that we were in. We needed a very strong, you know, when someone's deep sleeping and you need someone to slap that guy, wake him up. The Ummah needed to be slapped like this, because we were in a tranquilized state. So I believe, in a sense, that this episode of the Palestine conflict is a turning point. Yes, we were in the weak point in our history, but inshallah, it's an uphill trajectory from here. Another from the sisters? Yep. In the back. Salam. What advice would I give to my 18-year-old self? I'll say, this is what I would say. Say, MashaAllah, brother. So whatever you're doing, just keep doing what you're doing. I'm only joking. Honestly, the advice I would actually give myself is, I started memorizing the Quran properly when I was about 19. Okay. And I was memorizing the Quran when I was driving the car, going to the schools and universities and stuff. And it took me about, I don't know, 7 years, maybe 8 years to memorize the Quran. It took a long time. It didn't take me 3 years or 4, because I was just doing it part-time. I was in the car driving. I had a habit. Whenever I get into the car, I just recite the Quran and memorize a page or something. So I would tell the 18-year-old to actually start memorizing earlier, because you need to memorize the Quran multiple times. People don't realize this. When you memorize it for the first time, it's like paint on a wall. You know, when you're painting a room, the first coat of paint, when it dries up, there's a lot of patches. So you need to wait for it and then paint again, and then paint again and again and again. So now that I'm 32, still a young man, but that I'm 32, I wish I had memorized the Quran multiple times, you know. And if I had started when I was 18, that's one thing I would have done. But I'll be honest with you, I'll be totally honest. I believe regret is a waste of time, unless in Tawbah. There's only one function that regret has. Regret, when you feel nadam or regret. One function is for Tawbah. I see no other function for it. Zero. So I don't really regret anything, because I don't know, if I would have made another decision, I would have been a kafir maybe, or a fasiq, or a Zionist, or LGBT. Allah alam. Could have been anything. Allah is the one who guides. And imagine me standing talking about gay rights in front of the people and stuff like that in a positive manner. You know, there's actually a video of me. No. There's a video of me, the first ever debate I'd done in my life. Now, whoever has this video has something very dangerous, okay? Because it was a mock debate. It was in school. I was about 16 years old and stuff. And wallahi, this is a true story, and no one knows that I'm giving you Malaysian people here something secret. Because we have that kind of relationship together now. Yeah? So basically what happened was that they said, look, you have to represent the liberal position. Okay? So I was doing debates, but not on behalf of Islam. Can you imagine this? There's videos of me, I don't know who has them, and I'll pay him good money to keep them where he is. But of me supporting the liberal position. When I was 16 years old, this is maybe like, 16 years ago, I guess, yeah? So, yeah, that was the first thing. Now it's obviously the opposite, but maybe Allah put me in a situation where I was supporting the liberal position. I was talking about why everyone should be, legalize drugs and all this stuff. And it was for a school project. It was for a school project. Just in case you're thinking. But it's helped me now because now I'm arguing against that position. So I put myself in the shoes of someone who, subhanAllah. The point I'm making to you is, Allah could have done anything to me at any time. And Allah chose that I become and stay a Muslim now. And so because I'm in this situation, I wouldn't have wished anything other than this. And regret in general, I don't like regret. It's only good for tawbah. You say, astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh. I won't do this again because it's one of the 4 things you have to do for tawbah. For proper repentance, you have to regret your action and then do kind of azm that you're not going to do it again. Other than that, don't have regret in your life. You shouldn't have it, I shouldn't have it, we shouldn't have it. Think about the present and the future in a positive sense. Don't think about the past, I should have done this and that. The Prophet told us, لا تقل لو أني فعلت كذا وكذا. Yeah, ولكن قل قدر الله ما شاء فعل. We mentioned already, don't say if only I had done such and such. Instead say that Allah had willed it and it has come to be. Okay, have we done 2 from the sisters? Okay, 2 from the brothers, or we'll do 1-1 now, what? No, we just do 1-1-1-1 like that.
We have until
10:20? Okay, yeah, we've got time.
I wanted to hold the point.
No, 1-1 is better, just in case, because I can. The brother in the blue shirt. And then we'll come to the sisters. Yeah. Hi.
I did another question. But
Okay. So you're wasting our time, brother, huh?
I did another question at first, but since you're here, I might as well ask you something.
No, go on.
It's not going to be as deep as brother's Ash's question.
Masha.
So my question is, in today's day and age, it's arguably the most challenging fact to stay on the iman and to stay on the
Yeah.
So what would be your advice to the Muslims, to the young Muslim guys, on how to stay on the right path in today's age?
Yeah, so I would say the first thing is for you to try and avoid the major sins. Okay, like I know this is a very basic piece of advice, but this is the advice of the Quran. الَّذِينَ يَجْتَنِبُونَ كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمِ وَالْفَوَاحِشَ إِلَّا اللَّمَمَ. Another verse, الَّذِينَ يَجْتَنِبُونَ كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمِ وَالْفَوَاحِشَ وَإِذَا مَا غَضِبُوا هُمْ يَغْفِرُونَ. This means that the ones who keep away from the major sins, except for the minor sins, okay, everyone's going to commit minor sins. Allah's taking that for granted in the Quran. He's saying that you're going to commit minor sins, that's fine. He's not saying go and do them, but he's saying, okay. But with the major sins, okay, you try and avoid them. Because the kaba'ir now, there's a whole discussion of what is the kaba'ir. Is it 7? Is it 70? There's a book by Dhahabi called the Kaba'ir, the major sins, and he has a whole list of kaba'ir. But the point is, try and avoid the major sins. Try and find out what they are. Maybe consult that book, the book of Dhahabi, and just look at the contents page and say, okay, these are the things that I should avoid. Because you'll be surprised, there are some things in that list which you wouldn't consider to be major sins. So know what the major sins of Islam are and try and avoid them. Because there's no point in having a cup that you fill up, but there's dirt or poison or something inside of it. You have to clean the cup first. The second thing is then to do the basics of Islam and to be consistent. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned a hadith. He says, they asked him, what's the best deeds? He says, أَدْوَامُهُ وَإِنْ قَلْ. The most consistent deeds, even if they are small. So consistency is key. Whatever you do, be consistent. So these are the 2 pieces of advice I would give. And trust me, if you do follow them, inshallah, Allah will keep us guided. Okay. Let's go to the sisters. I'm trying to get as much done in the last 20 minutes as possible. Yes. Yeah. Salam.
I would like to understand because you're always doing debates.
Yeah.
I'd like to understand whether it is acceptable to do debates or not, and what is your position?
Yeah, I mean, she asked about whether it's advisable to do debates in dawah. It depends on who you are. If you're someone very skilled. No, I mean, look, honestly, the Quran does mention debates, okay? وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ, and debate them with the ways that are better. وَلَا تُجَادِلُوا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا مِنْهُمْ. Don't do debates with those Ahl Kitab except with the ways that are better, except for those who are oppressed among them. وَتِلْكَ حُجَّتَنَا آتَيْنَاهَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ عَلَى قَوْمِهِ نَرْفَعُ دَرَجَاتٍ مَنْ نَشَاءُ. These are the arguments we gave Abraham against his people. So Allah gave arguments to Abraham. So there are many. ادعوا إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن. So many verses talk about debates. Is it advisable? It depends on the context. You know your context more than I do. I've been told that Malaysia doesn't really have that kind of a debating culture. Now you might decide we want to invent it. Give it a try. Maybe, I don't know, in some kind of closed environment. You get somebody and try it out. Why not? I'm not advising for or against. Once again, you have to know your context for that. But in the context of the UK, for example, or the US, where it made sense for us to debate these people because we have the truth. At the end of the day, we feel very confident about it. And Islam is a religion of confidence. I mean, not only debates, Islam even mentions mubahala, which is basically this idea that you bring your whole family, your wife, your kids, everyone, you bring, and then whoever's lying will put the curse of Allah on them. Let's do that. That's in the Quran. نزع أبناءنا وأبناءكم وأبناء نساءنا ونساءكم ثم نبتهل فنجعل لعنة الله على الكاذبين. That let's do mubahala. So Islam has these things. Jihad is even more risky, sorry to say, than debates, because if you lose jihad, then you lose land. The woman becomes slave to the man. So there's always going to be risk in things, okay? Because a lot of it is, if it's because of risk aversion, I want to tell you something, that sometimes it's risky not to take a risk. If you feel like, okay, I want a risk averse, I want to stay in a risk averse zone where I'm just doing my life and this and that, and I'm like, okay, you can think that, but that's a risky stance. For example, you know, there's a verse in the Quran that says, وَأَعِدُّ لَهُمْ مَسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن قُوَّةٍ وَمِن رَبَاطِ الْخَيْلِ تُرْهِبُونَ بِهِ عَدُوَّ اللَّهِ عَدُوَّكُمْ. That prepare for them for fighting, you know, what you can from horses and steeds and so on and so forth, yeah? That you'll send terror in them. Some scholars say just the mere preparation. You know, you see sometimes now like military parades. They do that for a reason, so it's a deterrent. If the communities know that we are capable of debates, we are capable of arguing, we are capable of putting people down, we are capable of this, then they give us respect. I'll be honest with you. If they don't know that, then they may decide not to give you respect. So just the mere preparation for debate, the mere going out there and doing it, it can strengthen the Muslim community. I believe in it. But don't overdo it. There's lots of things that you can do which are dawah related, especially in the islands, especially to different people, especially using media, especially using creative angles, stories, series, movies, whatever, short movies, wherever you can, writing, forms of dawah that you can do. And everyone has been given a gift that they can propagate Islam with, but you just have to find that gift and use it to propagate Islam. Okay, let's have one from the brothers. Say again? Oh, the brother there with the afro. Oh, you gave him a shake. He didn't do that with anyone else. Oh, okay.
So in the context of debates,
yeah.
There needs to be a shared list of facts or a shared common agreed upon facts for any debate to occur. However, when debating with Zionists and with other groups that are very skilled at obfuscating history and facts, it can get very infuriating. So that's a part of, like, what are your thoughts on it?
Look, when I teach people how to debate, I say there are three pillars, and we can't go into the details of it now, but there are three pillars of it, okay? Because in my spare time, no one knows this, but a lot of people that I've debated, I've trained them, okay? Some people that you'd be very surprised at, why is this guy collaborating with this? But I never reveal. But the first session I have with them, I say, look, there are three pillars of debating. Three pillars. Number one, you have to have arguments, okay? Number two, you have to have strategies. And number three, you have to have tactics. Okay, and it's the same thing with marriage. Number one, you have to have arguments. The arguments are like, the rule I usually give is less is more. 2 or 3 arguments is fine. 2 or 3 arguments is good, so long as you keep repeating them. As long as the end user knows that you've made those arguments. Okay? As long as you know the counter to those arguments. A strategy is something like a counterattack strategy, or an aggressive strategy, or this or that. So we look at that. And then tactics, the difference between strategy and tactics is that tactics is how you implement your strategy. Strategy is the overarching way you're doing it. So what you're talking about is more tactical in the third stage. Someone's a liar, basically. How do you deal with them? There's many different ways of dealing with a liar. Okay. And I had a debate with a guy called Anhol Shmoli. And he was a liar, okay? Now, the way I tried to deal with it is, a lot of it I just ignored it. I don't care, like, you know. I ignored it. He was saying, you're this and you're that, and you said this, and you said about the homosexuals and this and that. I was just, okay, you know, no problem. That's one way of dealing with it. Another way is to challenge them, to say, okay, well, can you produce the timestamp when I said such and such? You can do whatever there's different ways of doing it. And look, debating is more of an art than it is a science. And a good debater is like a good chef. There isn't an exact method, by the way. Yani, you don't go in and say, okay, you put this much argument and this much strategy and this much text and you shake it up and you have the perfect debate. No, you go into the thing, it's like rangdang, where you make rangdang. Or whatever you make, you know. You just know that. In fact, there was a guy who, I think he came to Malaysia. His name was Gordon Ramsay. Do you know him? First time I've ever seen this happen to him. Was it in Malaysia? Oh, I loved it. He came in, I don't know what he was trying to make, randang or what he's trying to make. What was he trying to make? Something. And then there was a Malaysian guy, he said, no, this is wrong. He said, it's got to be sweet and sour. Did you see this? Yeah, and he was like, فَبُهِتَ الَّذِي كَفَرَ. So he was, it was the first time he was sitting there, like he was gobsmacked. This guy is like, you know, telling him how to do it. But the point is that as a debater, you're a chef, okay? And you don't have to be a chef debater. You could be a chef. Some people are very artistic. So, like, for example, I don't know how to draw very well. My daughter, oh my God, I'm thinking, she's overtaking me. She's a little girl, 5, 6 years old. She can draw better than I can. Everyone has been given something. You just have to find what you're good at. Some people are excellent designers and they make, like, you know, a computer software and they've got these analytical minds and mathematical minds. They can make some software for the da'wah. That can be the new software that we need this. So the point is to know what you're good at and to position. It's not just debating. But in terms of debating, though, the 3 things you have to think about are arguments, strategies, and tactics. And you have to align them, and there's no exact answer. The main thing, though, is confidence. Okay, I've had debates where I was wrong, but I've been confident. Honestly, like I'll give you one example. This is early in my career. Alhamdulillah, it was not televised. It was with a PhD in mathematics. Now, I didn't do mathematics to a high level, right? I did it in, you know, what we call GCSEs. That's maximum. I stopped there. And this is a PhD in maths. And he said to me, look, I watched your video. And he was a German as well, yeah? So you can imagine he's probably manufacturing a new car as we speak. You see the new BMW come here, it's got his name on the back of it or something. And he said to me, you said such and such and such, but in Bayes' theory, which now I know about, by the way, but I didn't know then. In Bayes' theory, if we do the calculations, this is what it looks like. And he showed it to me. So here I am, you know. Don't know what he's talking about. He might as well give it to me in Chinese language. Gave it to me. I looked at it. I said, Looked at him. I made a few facial expressions. I said, Are you sure about those calculations? I said, I just want to ask you, are you sure about these calculations? And then he said yes. The first time he said it, he was confident. He said, yeah, of course I'm sure. And he said it was smug and arrogance. He said, of course I'm sure. And he didn't even look at it. I said, just look again. And now I made him doubt himself because he looked down. He looked down. I said, you don't need to comment now. I said, you don't need to comment now. Just look over the calculations and we'll speak next week. See you later, yeah? I went, honestly, wallahi, it's a true story. I went and I got some guys, mathematicians. Somalis, actually. And they went to a university called UCL in England. I said, this is what he's giving me. What do you think? So there was 2 Somalis, and they didn't want to kill each other. This time they were collaborating because the enemy of the enemy is my friend. And they were working on the thing. And he said, look, he actually made a mistake. The first one said that. I said, what do you mean? He made a mistake. The first one said it, and I was like, I don't know, because you're a master's degree. This guy's a PhD. He's a professor at the university. The other guy said, no, he did make a mistake. The other Somali said. I said, where? He said, right there. I said, explain it to me. He said, this is what you say to him. So then I met him again. I said, did you discover? You see what kind of mistake you made? He said, yes, but that was just a typo. Wallahi, I felt like when you punch someone, he starts wobbling. So I jumped on him. Not in that way. I jumped on him. I said to him, that's why you shouldn't be talking about this and that. Yeah. But the true question is not about maths, it's about philosophy. And I got to my field now. I said, yeah, the question is blah, 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 blah. I ran away now. Escape from trouble. It's tactics. What I'm trying to say is that there's a lot. Now, I tried this with my wife. So what message was that such and such sent you? Are you sure you saw a message? I can't recall a message. No, I saw a message. Okay. When did you see this message? Huh? Doesn't work. It doesn't work. The tactics in marriage are completely different. Because even if you win in a debate, you lose. There was one time I was pretty sure I beat her in the debate. This and that and this and that, and there's the evidence and this. Oh, finished. And then I even started doing this. And then there was dead silence. I said, what are you going to say now? There's no prize. You play stupid games, you win silly prizes. I didn't win any prize then. So don't try this at home. It won't work. Genuinely, because a lot of the times we try and implement this stuff with our family members. You have a debate with your sister. So what are you doing? This is a sword. You use it with the enemy. You don't use it with your brother or your sister. The best way to debate a close one is to avoid the debate with them in the first place. Genuinely. I know how to beat my wife in a debate now. And hopefully no one's recording. You can delete it from the recording. But it's called emotional manipulation. That's right. It's called emotional games. Just look. What's wrong? When I hear what's wrong, it's like, when the boxer hits the guy and he goes like that. Yeah, I've got it now. I just feel like, we've been this and that. It's a completely different thing. You have to adopt a different strategy, a compassionate strategy. Am I right? Yeah? There we win. You win. Anyway, I think we've got time for one more question. Have we done one from the brothers now? We've got one from the brothers in the back. Have we done one from the sisters now with the brothers? We need a sister now, right? Come on. What are you trying to do? Dominate the situation? I said be compassionate. You're going there. And this guy's here holding a chair above his head. I don't know what kind of university this is anyway. We'll come back to you in a second. Let's get to the sister first. Because we're doing brother, sister, yes? Yes. I've really warmed up now, haven't I? I started off with all the hadiths and I've become a stand-up comedian. Assalamu alaikum.
So just going back to what you said earlier about how do we know that what we've done is enough
Yeah.
to support our brothers and sisters?
Yeah.
So we're all living here in Malaysia, a blessed country. We have a roof over our heads, and we go about our lives, our daily lives, having good food, smiling, laughing with our families, planning holidays. So how do we know that we've done enough apart from dua, sadaqah, and all this since this whole genocide happened. And yeah, I'm not sure how to.
The thing is, honestly, sister, like, this situation, a lot of it goes back to the Muslim rulers. And not just the Muslim rulers of very specific countries, very big countries. Because they are the Muslim countries, yeah. I mean, that's where the real blame lies, okay? Now, there's only so much we can do. There is only so much. Like, I know for a fact, because I'm dealing with the charity situation, alhamdulillah, we've raised millions of pounds for Gaza. And I know for a fact Indonesia and Malaysia have raised billions, actually, of hundreds of millions at least, right, of dollars. And that's great, yes? But right now, charity, not to put anyone off, but they've got like limitations of it. Because not everything is going in, okay? And there's like lines of trucks outside of Gaza. To the point where I felt like doing more charity might not, at this stage, be needed. At this stage. Maybe later, but not right now. Right now, because it's not going in. A lot of it's not going in. So, okay, that's the charity aspect. What else can we do? Changing the narrative. So we try and change the narrative by doing something continuously. Whether it's online, social media is the only way for us anyway, the internet. If you can do something on social media which you're not doing, then maybe you're not doing enough. So the barometer is, can I do something which I'm not doing? If you can answer that question to yourself truthfully and faithfully, can I do something which I'm not doing? And the answer is yes, then maybe you're not doing enough. But in terms of the hukum shar'i, or is fard kifaya, fard ayn, I'm not going into that, frankly, because I can't tell you whether this is fard ayn or fard kifaya. That's a good question for me to ask the muftis and the scholars myself, okay? Because the question is, if a group of people in the community do something, does it alleviate this sin from everyone else or not? That's a question I have to ask myself to some of the scholars. But the answer to the question is that if you feel like you can do something which you're not doing, then maybe you're not doing enough. Just from the perspective of you can do more, not from the perspective that you're going to be sinful. On that perspective, that's a fatwa issue, which we need to think about and ask the scholars, inshallah. Hope that answers this question. Have we got one more for that brother? Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Assalamu alaikum.
So my question is, I have one of my friends who told me that if Quran is complete, then why do we need hadith? If we need hadith, that means like you are saying that Quran is not complete.
Yeah.
So this was my question.
Okay. I mean, tell him, look, the Quran itself says, وَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الذِّكْرِ لِتُبَيِّنَهُ لِلنَّاسِ. Yeah? In Surah Al-Nahl. We have sent down the Quran, but we have also sent down a dhikr, so that you can explain it to them. Do you see this? This is in Surah Al-Nahl, chapter 16 of the Quran. It says Allah has sent down the Quran. Okay? Allah has sent down the Quran. But He's also sent down a dhikr, something else, which is a reminder, so that you can explain the Quran to them with it. So all you have to ask your friend, don't let him ask you silly question. This is a silly question. He says, oh, the Quran is complete. The Quran doesn't give you how to do double bypass surgery, for example. So, okay, should we use the Quran for a bypass? No. There are some things the Quran, it tells us to go and seek somewhere else. That's what makes it complete. Where it says, مَا فَرَّطْنَا فِي الْكِتَابِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ, we haven't left out anything in the book. It doesn't mean that it's going to have quantum mechanics inside the Quran. It means it tells us where to go to find quantum mechanics. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلِ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Go and ask the people of specialism. So the point is, you tell him this is a misplaced question and it doesn't prove anything. And I agree that the Quran is complete. But the Quran itself tells us to use a dhikr to explain it. Are you, this is what you ask him, are you denying this verse of the Quran? Because I know you don't believe in hadith. So you deny the verse of Surah Al-Nahl, or do you accept this verse? This is what you ask him. If you say, I deny the verse, then you say, okay, you are a kafir. You are a kafir. If he says, no, I accept it, but it doesn't mean that. And the dhikr that is mentioned is the Quran itself. But if it's the Quran itself, why does it mention the Quran and the dhikr? That would be a tautology. This would not make sense. It would not make sense to mention two things as separate, but then they're the same thing at the same time. You see? Like, for example, in Surah Al-Ahzab, So it's chapter 33 of the Quran, I think verse 35, yes? Where it says, وَاذْكُرْنَ مَا يُتْلَى فِي بُيُوتِكُنَّ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. Allah is mentioning to the wives of the Prophet, وَاذْكُرْنَ, mention what is in your homes. مَا يُتْلَى فِي بُيُوتِكُنَّ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ, from the ayat of Allah, the ayahs of the Quran, وَالْحِكْمَةِ, and the hikmah. Now, it can't be that the ayat and the hikmah are the same thing, because al-atf yaqtadi al-mughayara. There's a principle in Arabic language that says that when you put a conjunctive together, it means it's different. Two things are different. That's what it means. There's no way, linguistically, grammatically, or logically, that ayatullah and al-hikmah are the same thing. They must be different. So Allah is telling the wives of the Prophet that you must mention al-hikmah separate from the Quran. The question I have to ask is, what is al-hikmah? It cannot be anything other than the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So these two verses are enough to cut the throat of the Quranist. Not even just cut his arguments, but cut his throat. Anything he says next is going to make him kafir, double kafir, triple kafir, quadruple kafir. Because these guys are just the reason. A lot of the reason why they actually veer in that direction, because a lot of the hadith goes against liberalism and feminism. This is why they're in the situation. Or because they don't like the fact that they have to do certain things, practice in Islam. The point is they're not convinced with Islam. Without the Quran, without the hadith, you don't know who the Prophet ﷺ is. There's not enough in the Quran to know who the Prophet ﷺ is. You won't know his true character. You need the seerah, you need the sunnah. So by throwing away and chucking away the Quran, the sunnah, you're chucking away the character of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Moreover, and this is the final argument, I would say that the way the Quran has been preserved is the same way the authentic sunnah has been preserved. It's exactly sanad, asanid. So why is it like, let me give you an example. There's one hadith that says, Man كذب علي متعمدا فليتبوأ مقعده من النار. Whoever lies about me intentionally, let him prepare his seat in the hellfire. Maybe that's why you were holding the seat up in the sky before. Maybe you were showing them the seat because that's what they're going to be sitting on in the hellfire. But that's something else. This hadith has been narrated by 42 people. 42 companions, 42. Yes? Now, there are ayahs in the Quran that have not been narrated by 42 companions. This hadith has been narrated by more companions than some ayat of the Quran. So if they accept the method of transmission of the Quran, then they are forced to accept the same method of transmission of some of those authentic hadith. And if they don't, from a historical perspective, an academic perspective, they have no leg to stand on. But they have a chair to sit on, of course. With that, I think we conclude, right? Should I get back to you? All right, here you go. Thank you.
All right. I'm sure everyone is eager to learn from our fellow brother. However, time is not on our side, and we have reached the end of our program, unfortunately. I would like to ask Brother Muhammad Hijab to remain on stage for the other reading. And let's invite to the stage the IDT founder, Brother Lim, for the honorarium, and the head of the Office of Islamization and Self-Development, Brother Fadai, for the token of appreciation.
Should I stand up? Should I stand up?